Response? Question? Further debate. I recognize the member for Guelph.
Thank you, Speaker. I rise this evening to speak to Bill 2, the Protect Ontario Through Free Trade Within Canada Act. And I just want to say, Speaker, when Donald Trump put forward these ridiculous tariffs, I put forward a number of solutions to protect Canadian workers, Canadian jobs, Canadian businesses. Things like an investment tax credit to help unlock the investment that was frozen by the threats from south of the border, or supporting direct investment to protect workers and companies affected by the tariffs. And two ideas I put forward that are relevant to this bill was one, diversifying trade partners and removing interprovincial trade barriers, and to have a Buy Ontario strategy. And so while I have some concerns about some limitations and some holes in this bill, especially when it comes to some of the regulatory unknowns, I will be supporting this bill because I do believe it moves us forward in helping to reduce interprovincial trade barriers and boost our economy. It will improve labor mobility in the province, and I want to extend the government a bit of grace, even though I'm going to raise some concerns on this, because I'm encouraged by the MOUs that Ontario has signed with other provinces, and I certainly think that we want to show strength through unity to push back against Trump's tariff threats, and I'd like to see Canada meet the July 1st deadline the Prime Minister has put forward. I wish the government would extend the same graciousness when it comes to Bill 5, which is actually dividing Ontarians at a time when we should be coming together like we are around Bill 2. And so I hope the government listens to the thousands of people who are on the front lawn today and the tens of thousands of people who have been raising concerns about Bill 5. Schedule 1 talks about Buy Ontario. If we're going to buy Ontario, we need to fix the procurement process that freezes out too many Ontario companies, and we need to protect the farmland that feeds us so we can grow the food here in Ontario that people in this province want to buy. Schedule 6 raises some concerns when it comes to making sure we don't have a race to the bottom when it comes to worker health and safety standards. Others have talked about the fact that we have higher standards when it comes to things like working at heights in Ontario, and we don't want to see that undermined here. We've also had nurses raise concerns about making sure that we have the qualifications in place for nurses, and that when we talk about attracting nurses from other places, we actually make sure they have good working conditions when they come to Ontario so they stay in the profession when they move here.
Thank you. Questions? I recognize the Minister for Rural Affairs.
Speaker, I appreciate the comments that we heard moments ago, but I would like to ask the member opposite to clarify himself. Earlier this evening at the Western Ontario Wardens Caucus, I heard you say specifically you actually like this bill. So I would like to ask you to share with the House tonight, what is it about Bill 2 that you like? Thank you.
Response?
Yeah, I appreciate the member's question. And like I said in my debate remarks, and I'll repeat once again now, I will be voting for this bill. And one of the reasons I'm voting for this bill is because we do need to reduce interprovincial trade barriers to help boost our economy. And like I said in my debate remarks, even though I raised some concerns about this bill, I'm going to support it because I think we need to show strength through unity to push back against Donald Trump. And I wish the government would show the same desire to have unity when it comes to Bill 5.
Question? I recognize the member for Nickel Belt.
Thank you, Speaker. And the member talked a bit about procurement, and I agree. Earlier on, my colleague talked about BioLease and how although they manufacture injectable cancer drug, oncology drugs, they were not able to break into the Ontario market. British Columbia buys from them, but Ontario doesn't, because Ontario has procurement that is always for huge amount. How do you see procurement changes that would make sure that every innovators, every business that produce something that is useful in Ontario is actually able to get into the Ontario market.
Response?
Yeah, I appreciate the members' questions. And I've heard over and over, ever since I've been elected, around the concerns people have, companies have, especially smaller businesses, being able to access public procurement in Ontario. And for those of us who were here during the COVID pandemic and happened to be on the committee where businesses testified to us all summer of 2020, almost every delegation from a business said they struggle to be able to sell to the Ontario government because the procurement rules are so difficult to navigate, especially for small businesses. I think one of the ways we can make it easier is to have a one-window approach for them, and another way is to make sure that we buy in different quantities so we can support large businesses from Ontario and small businesses from Ontario.
Question? I recognize the Minister for Agriculture.
And thank the member for Guelph for his comments. It's all the more appropriate that we're debating Bill 2 tonight when it's a local food week in Ontario.
Oh, here.
So I'd like to know if the member for Guelph can share, because this bill, if passed, will encourage interprovincial trade. It'll let Ontario showcase its economic might through agriculture. Can the member for Guelph share a local agribusiness, a startup, or a store or a farmer's market from Guelph he might want to highlight that this week is Local Food Week?
Response?
Yeah, I appreciate the member's question. And there are many I could share today, but the one I'm going to talk about is Goodleaf. Anybody seen Goodleaf? You're a vertical farm, south end of Guelph, fantastic product. And when we think about opening interprovincial trade barriers, it's the kind of company that literally started in a little tiny, almost garage, and has now grown into a factory-sized production that can export across Canada and around the world. And that's the kind of local food company that I believe this bill can support as we open markets across Canada. And at the same time, I just want to say that all those great food producers out there, I know we all love them across the aisle. For those that are doing cash crops, livestock, cattle, things like that that require larger land masses, let's make sure we protect the land that they grow their food on, that contributes $50 billion to Ontario's economy, over 875,000 jobs, so they can all take advantage of removing interprovincial trade barriers.